Welcome back to the channel. They say home is where the heart is, but for some, home is where the nightmare begins. Tonight, I've gathered 3 stories from viewers who thought they were alone until something or someone proved them wrong. Sit back, turn the lights down, and let's begin. Our first story comes from a college student named Elias. Elias had just moved into a suspiciously cheap studio apartment in an old Victorian house that had been converted into units. It was drafty, sure, but it was his. For the first week, everything was fine, but on the 8th night he heard it, a soft thump, followed by the sound of something dragging behind his headboard. He figured it was rats. Old houses always have guests in the walls, right? But then the smell started. Not the smell of a dead rodent, the smell of cheap cigarettes and unwashed clothes. One night, Elias woke up at 2 a.m. The room was freezing. He looked toward his closet, and the door was cracked open just an inch. He knew he'd closed it. He got out of bed, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He pushed the closet door open. Nothing, just his jackets. But as he turned to leave, he noticed a small circular hole in the drywall hidden behind his long coat. He leaned in, peering through it. On the other side, he didn't see darkness. He saw a pair of wide, bloodshot eyes staring back. A voice, barely a whisper, came through the hole. "You're late tonight, Elias. I almost went in without you." Elias didn't grab his phone. He didn't grab his shoes. He ran out that door in his socks and didn't stop until he reached a gas station 2 miles away. When the police arrived, they found a crawl space spanning the entire length of the building. Inside were blankets, hundreds of Polaroid photos of Elias sleeping, and a serrated kitchen knife. The renter was never found. Being a delivery driver in a rural town is a special kind of lonely. Sarah had been doing it for 6 months to pay for her car. Most nights were boring, just cold pizza and bad tips. But one Tuesday, she got an order at 2:45 a.m. The drop-off was a leave-it door at an address she didn't recognize deep in the woods. The GPS took her down a gravel path that seemed to go on for miles. Finally, she saw the house, a crumbling shack with no lights on. She stepped out, the gravel crunching under her boots. The silence was absolute. She placed the bag on the porch, took the confirmation photo, and turned to leave. Click. The sound of a camera shutter came from the dark woods to her left, not her phone, someone else's. She froze, then another click from the right, then another from the bushes behind her car. She fumbled for her keys, her hands shaking so hard she dropped them. As she knelt to grab them, a flashlight beam cut through the dark, hitting her square in the face. A man's voice called out, "Smile, Sarah, you're the best one we've had all week." She dove into her car, locked the doors, and floored it. As she sped away, her headlights caught 3 figures standing in the road behind her. They weren't moving, they were just holding cameras, flashes going off in unison, capturing her terrified face as she disappeared into the night. She never went back, and when the police checked the address, the house had been abandoned since the 90s. Our final story is perhaps the most disturbing. It comes from a man named David who bought a fixer-upper in rural Ohio. While stripping the old linoleum in the kitchen, David found a heavy iron ring bolted to a wooden hatch. He hadn't seen this on the floor plan. Being curious, he pried it open. It led to a sub-basement, just a small concrete room with a single chair in the middle. On the chair was an old baby monitor. David thought it was a relic from the previous owners and brought it upstairs as a joke. That night, he set the monitor on his nightstand. Around 3:15 a.m., the monitor crackled to life. Static filled the room. Then a rhythmic sound, creak, creak, creak. It sounded like a rocking chair. Then a woman began to hum a lullaby. It was distorted, pitch shifted by the old hardware, but unmistakably human. David realized the sound wasn't coming from the monitor. It was coming from below him, through the floorboards. He grabbed a flashlight and went back to the kitchen. The hatch was open. He looked down into the sub-basement. The chair was empty. But then he heard the humming again, right behind him in the dark kitchen.
He spun around. the flashlight beam hitting the ceiling. Hanging from the rafters was a woman in a tattered white dress, her limbs twisted at impossible angles, clinging to the wood like a spider. She dropped down, landing silently on all fours. David says he doesn't remember the drive to the hospital. He only remembers the feeling of her cold, damp hand brushing his ankle as he jumped through the window. He sold the house as is. The new owners? They haven't been seen in 3 weeks. The world is a lot bigger and a lot darker than we like to admit. If you have a story you want me to tell, send it to the email in the description. And remember, check your locks. You never know who might be listening. Good night.